It's Mark and Pete.
Hello, and welcome to the show. More colourful conversations with Mark and Pete. This week's show is devoted to charities, with a big question. Have charities become hungry monsters? It's extraordinary in the UK alone how many charities are registered. But big questions in recent times is what is actually happening to the money that is donated by you, the public? Are they becoming hungry monsters? Is this a myth? Or is it a reality? Well, we're going to explore this, and we'll talk about the data which supports some of the reasons for why people think that perhaps charities are getting a little bit too big for their boots. Well, also charity comes on different levels. There's personal donations, there's company donations. Of course, obviously, nations give to other nations. Well, what does it really mean? Are we putting our money in the right place? I'm going to set the scene by giving you some of my thoughts with a simple poem. This is called On Your Doorstep. Faith and hope saw lots of scope to put all the world to rights. They brought joy as well, with lots to tell, and charity in their sights. They searched far and wide, with hope as their guide, to strange and foreign lands, to work together in life forever, to meet all demands. Alas, faith was waning through much campaigning. Sadly, hope started fading fast. With joy in decline, without a sign, their cause could not last. Their journey grew to pastures new. Charity could not be found. But joy has a cost, and faith got lost. Their fortune ran aground. So for all that hope can truly cope, and wherever faith may roam, keep your values near and virtues clear. Remember, charity begins at home. So with me today is clergyman Pete. So Pete, what's your view on the state of charities in the UK?
Well, just to give a personal perspective, I have to say that I've just recently been bombarded with requests of people coming round to my front door and asking me, demanding pretty much that I give to charity. It's framed in the English of a question, but it's in the tone of all your neighbours have given to this, so you're going to do it as well, aren't you? And it's rather an aggressive way of trying to give money because you have to give there and then. You're not allowed to give later. That's the principle of it. And this is, to me, is a recent thing. I haven't noticed this aggressive fundraising by charities until quite recently. So it seems to me that this is something that's indicative of the way that charities seem to run these days, in that they seem to have become, in many cases, an end in themselves. They're like a fundraising machine, and they're using therefore the same techniques that are used by companies in order to promote their product or to sell more and therefore make more money. And that just seems inappropriate for charity. Shouldn't you be able to take your time and make your own decision? So what I'm seeing is it gives me a bad feeling. There's a bad taste in the mouth about how the way charities are going in Britain at the moment.
Yes. Well, I mean, the purpose of the poem is really to sort of say that, look, people's faith in charities are certainly waning, and it's quite remarkable about some of the statistics that actually exist today. So I'm going to ask you a simple question. How many registered charities do you think there are in the UK alone today?
Okay, right. How many registered charities?
Yes.
Now, of all sorts. Now, the thing is that I happen to know from my work in a church that churches are now required to register as a charity if they have an income of over 100,000 a year. That's not a huge amount if you think of the whole organisation of a church. And they can join anyway. So I'm going to say there's quite a few. Well, I'm going to be more specific than that. What I'm going to say is that there must be thousands. I'm going to say 1,289,252.
Well, fortunately, listeners, there are nowhere near that amount, but there are a staggering amount.
Okay.
So there are.
Go on, then. How far was I out?
Well, quite a long way, by about a tenth, actually. But actually, more of a fifth. It's just under 200,000 registered charities.
Okay.
But the important thing is that collectively they raise a staggering £80 billion a year. Now, this is where we raise the question about the hungry monsters, partly because that although it seems like a lot of good money that will be put to good causes. But unfortunately, one of the biggest questions, of course, is that, well, where is all that money going? And there are some issues that, in fact, a lot of the money is just going to fat cat CEOs paid, six-figure sums on salaries. And actually, when you put administration costs on the table, it could be in some cases that only 50% of the money that's donated by the public actually gets through to the end cause. That's clearly one challenge. Charities, of course, will say, well, of course, there are costs to running an organisation. But our point has to be, surely the purpose of the charity should be that the vast majority of the money should be going to the cause. Now, there is a question over the scalability of a charity. So I'll just raise a point that back in the 1950s, the economist Cyril Northcote Parkinson gave us what came to be known as Parkinson's law. Basically, the work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. What he was saying is how people need to recognize how organizations sort of become bureaucratic and increasing with their workload, and they become more burdensome, essentially, that the bigger they get, the more administration costs grow. And of course, it means that more money is required to feed them. The other issue, of course, is duplication. Some of the charities may be doing a similar thing. Now, whether that's cause to the homelessness, whether that's causes for research on cancer and so on. And there are many other examples where there are duplications. So I think the question really is there now a time where a legislation should be brought in place to either consolidate some of these charities and perhaps put a restriction on this idea of percentage of administration to the amount of donation that's actually given to the end cause?
Yeah, I think that is a big issue. That's the question that I see people asking when asked about why you would give to a certain charity. Often what's cited is how much goes actually to the cause that you're interested in, how much goes to administration, which is often seen as the money being siphoned off to administrators. Yes. I mean, whether that's true or not, that's the perception, and that's why it can make a charity unpopular. And in advertising, charities will often say, guaranteed a certain percentage goes to whatever their particular cause is. And that is an issue. But you see, the thing is, these organisations do need to have an administration. They need to be run effectively. So you can't really say that the administration charge is not part of the giving.
Yes.
Because it needs to be done. Otherwise, the money's not going to get to where it's going to go. Someone's got to organise it. So I can see that there needs to be a proportion of it that will go towards administration, even if it's that the administrator volunteers their own time. But if they're doing that, they are effectively giving to the charity because they're giving their own time when they could be earning other money. So whichever way you look at it, there is always some taken in administration. The question is whether it's too much. And it does seem in some cases that it is too much, and there are well-known cases recently where it does seem that too much money was being taken for administering the charity.
Yes.
And high-profile cases recently. So it obviously can be an issue, it can be a problem, but that's not in itself not a good reason not to give to charity at all. It might be a way that you sort between the different charities.
Yes. I mean, one of the things, just to illustrate the point, was that in the UK, a high-profile charity called Kids Company, for those
Yes.
on our foreign listeners, will know that this is a charity that's been around for not quite 20, I think it was 19 years, but sadly came to an end simply because it ran out of money. Now, this can happen to any charity, but one of the real contentious points on this was how the money was being used. The UK government actually chose to give it, I think it was between £3 and £4 million to try and keep it going, with the strict instruction that most of the money would not go to paying staff. Effectively, it would go to the cause. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But irrespective of whether you believe the money should go one way or the other, the actual charity has folded. And it raises the questions about how the charities are run, where the money is going, where the organisation themselves can actually sustain themselves, when many people who are looking at every single penny in these rather austere times, that there are so many charities on the market. Are they really duplicating? I think this is my point, which is, nobody has an issue with charity. The principle of charity is a good one, especially if you've got a particular cause in mind and you want to use that cause, put your money to that cause on a regular basis. But it's sad to see that organisations such as Kids Company that would help people to give them housing, give them food, give them advice, etc., sadly has sort of come to an end in what was really a relatively short period of time. There are many charities, as we know, have been around a lot longer and have sustained themselves through recessions. Yes. So I guess the question then really is that what can be done with this rather growing list of charities, and then of course it raises the other question about how do governments also look at it on an international scale. So the poem that I read out was primarily saying this principle of charity begins at home. Why is it that we are, as a nation, allowing charities such as Kids Company to go bust when we're donating millions of pounds outside of our own doorstep?
Yes, it does be something wrong. And it does seem to be one of the things is that large charities have their own momentum. Because they're a big charity, they're going to remain a big charity, whether or not they're actually being that effective. And the other side of it is the use of the charity in order to make money. In that,
yes,
a charity will want to do something. I don't know, build some buildings. Now, the people who are going to build the buildings will be paid. Now, what company is going to do that? And who decides? And it can be that the charity is being used in order to make money, but certainly it can, whether intentionally or not, can keep people in poverty. In the same way as is often noted, that giving too generous social security payments to people keeps them in poverty, as it doesn't give incentive to get into work. In the same way, whole countries can be kept in poverty by making them reliant on handouts from abroad. But why are they in that position? Well, it can often be, and this is not an invented circumstance. This is a common circumstance for third world countries. They are kept in debt because of the tariffs imposed on their exports.
Yes.
So if they were given a free playing field, a fair playing field for their products to sell into Europe, for example, then they could work their way out of debt rather than and care for their own, rather than relying on external charities coming in. But then the stuff that they produced being taxed and the money going back to the people in Europe who are then giving to the charity. You get the circular problem here.
Yes.
That they're being kept in debt, but the charity is effectively just siphoning off some money. So then something needs to be done with the attitude of wanting to give to other countries, feeling paternalistic, feeling as though we're somehow superior in giving to them, rather than giving them a fighting chance to trade their way up to the same level as us and
yes.
being equal partners, which would be far better.
I mean, this is an emotive subject, and many people have got opinions on charities, good and bad. But what do we do when we refer to the Bible? What does the Bible say about giving?
Well, the Bible is very keen on us giving and being generous, and in Acts 20:35, this was the decision on whether you should give and help the weak. It says, the Lord Jesus himself said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. The discussion then was about whether you should get payment for working hard as an apostle in the church. And the Lord Jesus says, more blessed to give than to receive. And there's a strong teaching throughout the Bible on giving alms, as in ALMS, alms, giving to the poor. But it also talks about the importance of living frugally, of not expecting too much, of working to earn your own living, and that teaching as well, that the worker deserves their wages, that you are, or taking from the Ten Commandments, you are to work for 6 days a week, does give the impression that you're not meant to just live on handouts, but you're meant to work for a living if you possibly can, which I guess many people do. It's not a criticism of people, but I'm just giving the principle of the Bible on giving. But the other thing to say about giving is Jesus expects it. He says to his disciples, when you give, in Matthew 6 verse 2, so assuming they're going to give. But he wants us to give for the right reasons.
Yes.
So just to finish my comment from what the Bible has to say, Matthew chapter 6 verse 1, beware of practicing your righteousness before men to be noticed by them. So the purpose of giving to charity is not to be thought of as good, or if it is, it's so that God, our Heavenly Father, sees that we're doing what he wants. No, the purpose is to care for the poor. The aim, the end, is the actual important thing. So we're not to necessarily give to recognise charities. That only if that's the most efficient and effective way. So I think that there is an imperative of the Bible, seeing as it's the actual care for the poor that's important, to find out which are the inefficient and efficient charities, and whether certain charities should go away and get out of the way of us encouraging free trade and countries and areas within countries which have become poor, trading and growing their way financially out of needing the charitable help in the first place.
Yes. Well, I mean, I go back to my point, which is that charity does begin at home, and although it's an often used phrase, the reason for saying it is that we are seeing, day on day, week on week, month on month, year on year, more issues occurring in society where there is a need to put the money in the right place. And we're not saying that you shouldn't give to charity, but perhaps one needs to take a little bit more effort to understand the status of the charity, the purpose of the charity, how it's set up and where the money is going. And of course, obviously, if we are stronger as a society, then ultimately we'll be better placed to in turn be able to give more money to international causes. But if we're weak, and clearly there are some serious challenges with charities, as we've seen, that some of them are having to, unfortunately, take some rather drastic measures just simply to get the money in. So that's an issue in itself. But we're coming to a close here, so we would like to hear your thoughts on this subject. What do you think about charities? Do you give to a charity on a regular basis? Do you have a particular charity in mind that you think deserves more recognition? So we would love to hear from you. Drop us a line on markandpete.com and fill out the contact form. So join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete.